going to be talking about quadratic functions. And so up there on the board, you're going to notice I've written what a quadratic function is. F of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c. A little bit about a quadratic function. There are specific terms. First of all, if it's a quadratic, it has to have the ax squared term. By the way, what does a symbolize?
Quadratic term.
A number. Perfect. Good job. So a symbolizes a number. So it's a number times x squared. So anytime x squared is your highest power, we call it a quadratic. So ax squared is our quadratic term. Bx is a linear term. Now, this is the thing. A linear term doesn't necessarily have to be in a quadratic. Like b could be 0. So it could be like x squared and that's it. You won't need to have a linear term and it's still called a quadratic. C is your constant term. Once again, your constant term can be 0 or it can be any number. And so anyway, what's going to happen is we're going to go ahead and look at how we graph parabolas. Okay? So how we graph parabolas is, it's basically the graph of a quadratic function. And so if you notice here, I start with the y-intercept. The y-intercept is nothing more than what c is. Okay? So whatever c is in my equation, that's my y-intercept. Next, we have the vertex. If you notice in the picture here, the vertex is located right here. It's either the lowest or the highest point. Now, in that graph, it's the lowest point. How do you think it could be the highest point?
If it got flipped.
If it got flipped, right. So parabolas can also open this way, in which case there's where your vertex is the highest point. Basically, that vertex is the one that's in the middle. Okay? It's always on the axis of symmetry, so it's always smack dab in the middle. Now you're probably wondering, what is that axis of symmetry? That axis of symmetry we symbolize as a dashed line. Now let's think about that. What do you think, just in looking at that dashed line would represent or be similar to? What did you say? The middle. And what else? What's another word that could symbolize the middle or the what? The thing in the middle here is similar to a, what'd you look at today this morning when you got up?
A parabola.
No, what'd you look at when you got up this morning to get ready for school?
The
mirror.
A
ceiling.
mirror. So the axis here is similar to a mirror image. Okay, it's similar to a mirror. So whatever's on the left is going to be on the right. And you notice that with this y-intercept here, here's the reflection. So whatever point is like located here, you've got a point that's reflected that's the exact same distance as well. How we find the axis of symmetry is pretty important, and you might want to make sure you jot this down, okay, or highlight this on that sheet I gave you. The axis of symmetry is found by x equals negative b over 2a. It is an equation. So when I get my axis of symmetry, it's like x equals 1 or x equals negative 2. And the reason why it's an equation is because it's a vertical line. The axis is not just a point. Okay, so it could be anything here. It could be 0 even. In which case, if it's 0, it's going to be on the axis right here. Okay. Could be 5.
Say what line?
It is a line, yes. So now let's go ahead and look at our first example. You have this on your sheet. It says graph f of x equals x squared plus 4x minus 3. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do things in reverse of the slide we just looked at, because that way that's the freshest in our memory. So what was the last thing we looked at on the previous slide?
Axis of symmetry.
Axis of symmetry. So you are always going to start by finding the axis of symmetry. So I'm always going to start by finding the axis of symmetry. To find the axis of symmetry, I take negative b divided by 2a. Now for some of you, you might get confused as to what a, b, and c are, so let's go ahead and label them. Okay? And then that way it's easy to see which one is which. And so I have negative b, which is 4, divided by 2a. A is 1. So what does that give me?
-2.
Negative 2. So my axis is located at x equals negative 2. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a vertical line at negative 2. It's going to be dashed, and that's going to be my first part of my graph. Okay? So at negative 2, I'm going to go ahead and put a dashed line. Now, if you remember, I said we were going to do things in reverse. So we found the axis first. What are we going to find next?
The vertex.
The vertex. Okay. The vertex is located on the axis of symmetry. So here's how you're going to find the vertex. You're just going to plug -2 in to the original equation. You're going to plug -2 into the original equation. So that means I've got -2 quantity squared plus 4 times -2 minus 3. What is -2 squared? Positive 4 plus -8 minus 3. So what does that come out to be? -7. So the vertex is actually a point. So if I write that in point form, the vertex is located at -2, -7. The -2 is where the axis is. So that's where your vertex is located. So you're just going to go to -7, you're going to put a dot, that's where it's at. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to find the y-intercept. Now do we remember what the y-intercept is equivalent to? The y-intercept is
C.
equivalent to c. So in this problem, what is c going to be? -3. So I'm going to put a dot on the y-axis at -3. Now in order to draw my parabola, I'm going to also want to draw the other side. So I'm going to draw the, I'm going to draw the mirror image of it on this side. And so then all I need to do now is connect those points.
Hold on.
Now, the thing about a parabola, there are no straight lines in a parabola. There are only curves. I don't want to see it looking like a V, because there is something that does look like a V, and that's called the absolute value. So you need to make sure you have curves and keep the shape.
How do you get the bottom one? Bottom dot?
That's your vertex, -2, -7. Okay? Alrighty, so we're going to go ahead and,
Mine looks like a V.
alright, we're going to go ahead and look at the next one. Okay? So let's go and look at the next slide. F of x equals -5x squared minus 10x plus 6. So what's the first step, guys?
Axis of symmetry.
Axis of symmetry. So I'm going to find the axis. So the axis, x equals negative what? Because here's A, here's B, here's C.
Negative b over 2.
Yep, so the negative of -10 over 2 times -5. What is the negative of -10?
Positive 2.
+10 divided by?
2.
Divided by?
10.
-10. So what does x equal?
Negative 1.
-1. So tell me what I'm going to do now.
Plug it in to find the vertex.
Yep. First of all, I'm going to go ahead and draw an
You're gonna-
axis in, and then
Yeah.
I'm going to plug it in to find the vertex. So go ahead and draw your axes in your axis in first.
See, it's because I said vertex. You're saying axes.
So now we're going to find the vertex next because we need to find where is.
Oh, so you put -1 in the first?
Yep. So I'm going to put, for the vertex, I'm going to put -1 into my equation. So I've got -5 times -1 squared minus 10 times -1 plus 6.
So, you would have negative 10.
-5
Yeah.
plus 10, good.
So,
Plus 6. So what value does that give me? 11. So your vertex is actually located at the point -1, 11. If some of you are wondering where did she get the -1 from, well, that's from my axis. Okay, so -1, 11, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Might need to go ahead and add a spot on yours.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
More like
7,
2.
8, 9. Oh,
Okay, so now the next one. I need to find my y-intercept. What's my y-intercept?
6.
6. So I'm going to put a dot at 6. And I'm going to put the mirror image at 6 as well. And so finally, I just need to draw my parabola.
easy peasy.
So far, so good?
Um,
Now, real quick, before we go to the next slide, I want you to think about, okay, those two graphs. What was different between the two graphs?
one was negative, one was positive.
One was negative, one was positive. Okay. So now this next one, you're going to need to switch something that is on the sheet I gave you. So if you notice the very first statement, you're going to need to switch something. So it says the graph of f of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c has a minimum value if a is positive. You're going to need to change that. Okay? Has a minimum value if a is positive.
So this big.
Yep, change it. Now the next one says the graph of f of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c has a maximum value if a is negative. And so let's think about that. A is positive. So of those two graphs, which one was A positive in? The first one or the second one? The first one. Okay. And the negative one, A was, or the second one, the A was negative. What did you notice about the graph when A was positive? What did it look like? It opened up. What did you note about the graph when A was negative?
Went down.
It opens down. Now this is something you need to remember. If A is positive, the graph is going to open up like a smile. Because positive people smile. Okay? If A is negative, the graph's going to open down like a frown. You're sad.
Negative people.
Now, let's think about that. Because if you think about that, positive and minimum don't make a whole lot of sense, but look at that point there. That's the lowest point on the graph, so that's a minimum. Maximum here. The vertex is the highest point on the graph. Okay, so if the graph opens up, you're going to have a minimum value. If the graph opens down, you're going to have a maximum value. Now to find that maximum or minimum value, we need to find the vertex.
Is that all you need?
That's all you need. So let's look at the next question. The next question states, consider the graph of f of x equals negative 4x squared plus 12x plus 18. Determine whether it has a max or a minimum value. So this is the thing. Is the graph going to open up or down?
Up.
Graph's going to open what?
Up.
I'm going to be looking right here.
Yeah.
That's negative. It's bad. Okay, you're sad. So that's going to be a frown. So of those two values, are you going to have a max or a min? A maximum, because this is our highest point. So maximum value.
How did you just do that?
Basic.
We'll go to the next one. So now we need to determine the maximum or minimum value. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in, okay, my axis, and then I'll find the vertex, and that'll be good to go. So first of all, let's find the axis. X equals negative b.
12.
Negative 12 over 2 times a, which is negative 4. So what is your axis going to be? Negative 12 over 8, yep, which is negative 3 over 2.
Is it negative 8?
No. Yeah.
Oh,
negative
yep,
8.
you're right. Negative 12 over negative 8, which is positive 3 over 2. So now we need to find our vertex. So to find our vertex, I'm going to go ahead and plug in 3/2. So let's go ahead and plug that into the main problem. So negative 4 times 3/2 squared plus 12 times 3/2 plus 18. What is 3/2 squared going to be? 9 over 4. So if you take that times negative 4, you get negative 9. 12 times 3/2 is going to give me 18 plus 18. So what value are you going to get? 27. So determine the maximum or minimum value, that's 27. And last but not least, state the domain and the range. I'll tell you right now, domain, remember, was set of x values when we learned about these. Domain here will always be all reals. The range, on the other hand, let's think about that. In my picture, 27 is my highest point.
Anything under
Anything under 27, so y is less than
or equal to
or equal to
27.
27. There you go.
This is great second time
Okay, so now we're going to go through this again. Last example. Consider f of x equals 4x squared minus 24x plus 11. So I need to determine, does it have a max or a min value? So first of all, how's it going to open?
Yeah.
Let's look.
now. It's gonna
A is positive 4, so the graph is going to open up. It's a smile. Max or min? Minimum. Now we need to determine that. So to determine that, I got to find my axis first. So axis, x equals negative,
24.
yep, the negative of negative 24 divided by 2a, so 2 times 4. So 24 divided by 8, which is 3. Now I need to find the vertex. So to find the vertex, I'm going to go ahead and plug 3 in. So if I plug 3 in, I get 4 times 3 squared minus 24 times 3 plus 11. Okay. What's 4 times 3 squared, folks? 36 minus 72 plus 11. So I end up getting negative what? Negative 25, good. So find the max or the min value, negative 25. So that means this here value is negative 25. So let's do domain and range. What's domain?
All reals.
All reals, very good.
Y is
What's the range?
less than or greater than.
Y is what?
Less than.
It's greater.
Greater than or
Less
equal to negative 25. Very good. Okay, so you're going to have 10 problems to do on your homework.
What?
The first 5 are going to be to graph. The next 5 are going to be the ones we just got done doing. Now, real quick, let's go ahead and look in your book on page 224 to make sure that we get our homework started correctly. On page 224, it says 2. Okay, now notice the directions, I don't want you to follow the directions. I want you to do it exactly what we did in class. I want you to find the axis, find the vertex, find the y-intercept, and graph. Don't worry about making a table of values the way the book does it. Find the axis, vertex, y-intercept, and graph. So real quick, let's look at number 12, because that kind of, in the first class, that
That's
kind of
weird.
presented a little bit of a problem. So first of all, number 12 was y equals 4x squared. 224. So now if you remember, first step is to find the axis. So this is kind of where people panic, because they're like, whoa, you're supposed to do negative b over 2a, but there's no b.
So you could do 0.
Ah, so if there's no b or no c, that is what you get. So I end up getting 0 over 2a. Well, what is 0 divided by anything?
0.
0. So my axis is at 0, and so people are like, well, axis is at 0. What does that mean? It means that your axis is actually going to be the y-axis itself. So here's where your axis is going to be located. Now, if I find the vertex, to find the vertex, I'm going to plug in 0 for what? X. So if I plug the vertex in, I take 4 times 0 squared, which is what? 0. So, well, 0 is just going to be right here. And so then now the question is, well, what's the y-intercept? The y-intercept is c,
0.
but c is 0. So then the y-intercept and the vertex are the same point. So then the question is, well, how do you draw it? Well, does the graph open up or down? Up, because it's a positive 4, so this is all you're going to do. Now eventually we're going to look at how you draw a more precise graph. We're even going to use GeoGebra to do that, but for today, that's what you need to do. Okay, questions? Okay, for Monday, get those 10 done.